The, ex the exiled miner found an alien child, and every empire in the stars came to kill them. The asteroid colony wasn't built for living. It was built for breaking. Breaking rock, breaking ore, breaking men. For 20 years, Jace Valen had done both, digging tunnels deep into the iron bones of asteroid K7, breaking the Earth by day, breaking himself by night. His lungs carried the dust of decades, his skin scarred with burns from plasma drills. The colony had no sky, no weather, just rock and cold and silence. And he had chosen it, or rather, been left with no choice. The Syndicate had called him a traitor after the mutiny on Callisto Station. His crew slaughtered, his name blackened. Prison was the mercy he never got. Instead, they had dumped him here, in exile among the rocks, with nothing but a pick, a pulse drill, and the endless weight of his failures. Most men here didn't last long. They drank themselves to death on recycled ethanol, or wandered too deep into the shafts and never came back. Jace had lasted, not because he wanted to, but because he didn't know how to quit. His days were routine. Wake in his rusting habitat pod, choke down nutrient paste, fire up the drill, descend into tunnels that clawed toward the asteroid's molten heart. He rarely saw other miners. That suited him. Words were useless when you had nothing left worth saying. But on the day it all began, something broke the routine. He was deep in Shaft 12, further than the colony maps dared to go, when his drill bit struck something that wasn't rock. The machine screeched. Sparks lit the dark. Jace cursed, yanking the drill back. The wall before him wasn't stone. It gleamed, metallic, smooth, etched with lines that glowed faintly at his touch. "Hell is this?" he muttered, pressing a gloved hand against it. The surface thrummed, almost alive. He swung his pick. The first strike rang like a bell, echoing through the shaft. The wall cracked, light spilling through the fractures. Another blow and another, and the wall collapsed inward, revealing a chamber beyond. Jace froze. It wasn't natural. The chamber glowed with soft blue light, the walls carved with alien sigils. At its center stood a pod of crystal and alloy, humming faintly despite untold centuries of burial. Inside lay a child. Jace stumbled forward, heart hammering. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 by human reckoning. Her skin was pale silver, faintly luminous. Her hair floated like strands of starlight, drifting in the pod's suspension field. Her small hands were folded across her chest. Alive! The realization hit him like a blow. The readings on the pod's panel flickered faintly. Stasis active. He staggered back, breath ragged. No, 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 no. This wasn't his problem. He was an exile, a broken miner, not a savior. He had nothing. No ship, no weapons, no allies. He couldn't take care of himself, let alone whatever she was. He should seal the chamber and walk away, pretend he'd never seen it. But his eyes wouldn't leave her face, so fragile, so alone. And for the first time in years, something stirred inside him. Something he thought he'd buried in the cold. Memory. A little girl's laughter. His daughter's hand in his before the Syndicate came. The flash of fire when they took her, when they burned everything he'd had. Jace swore violently, fists clenched. He couldn't save his daughter. But this child, the pod hissed. His touch must have triggered it, because the stasis field flickered, then collapsed. Light drained from the chamber. The girl gasped, her chest heaving with her first real breath in centuries. Her eyes flew open. Violet, bright, terrified. Jace's heart stopped. She sat up weakly, trembling, her gaze darting across the chamber. When she saw him, she froze, pressing back against the pod, her lips trembling. Don't, she whispered in a voice soft and strange. Please. Jace raised his hand slowly. Easy, easy, kid. Not here to hurt you. She blinked at him, confusion flickering across her face. Her words were halting, broken, but somehow she understood him. Who? You? He swallowed hard. Nobody. Her head tilted. Protector? The word hit him like a hammer. He almost said no. He wanted to say no, but the way she looked at him, frightened, desperate, hopeful, choked the word in his throat. Yeah, he muttered instead. Protect her. He carried her from the chamber, her small body light in his arms. She clung to his collar, trembling, eyes wide as the tunnel swallowed them. By the time they reached his habitat pod, exhaustion had claimed her. She slept curled on his cot, breathing soft and shallow. Jay sat across from her, hands clasped, staring. What the hell am I doing? He muttered. He told himself he'd figure it out tomorrow, that he'd find someone to hand her to, some authority, some passing ship, that she wasn't his problem. But deep down, he already knew. She was. The next day, the colony changed. Word traveled fast in places like K7. Miners whispered of lights in the shafts, of strange hums in the rock. Patrol drones hovered longer near Shaft 12. And that night, as Jace returned from the mess hall, he noticed something new. Footprints. Heavy. Armored. Too many to be miners. They led straight toward his pod. Jace's blood went cold. Inside, the girl stirred, sensing his fear. She looked up at him with wide violet eyes, whispering, "Protect her?" He tightened his grip on the drill in his hand. "Stay quiet, kid." The shadows outside shifted. Voices echoed low. They were here, searching. Not for ore, for her. The knock came soft, too soft. Jace froze where he sat, his hand tightening around the handle of the plasma cutter. The girl stirred on the cot, her violet eyes opening with sleepy confusion. Another knock, then a voice, smooth and professional. "Colony inspection. Open up." Jace's gut tightened. The syndicate never wasted time on inspections, not unless they were hunting something. He rose silently, placing a finger to his lips. The girl nodded, pulling the blanket around herself, her luminous skin dimming as if she understood the need for silence. Jace crept to the pod's narrow viewport. 3 figures waited outside, not miners. Their armor was matte black, fitted with syndicate sigils. Pulse rifles gleamed under their cloaks. Their helmets scanned in faint red arcs, combing for heat signatures. They weren't knocking for politeness. They were stalling, waiting for orders. For her. The door shuddered. A voice growled, "Override, breach in 5. Jace swore under his breath. No time. He grabbed the girl, scooping her small body into his arms. Her hands clutched his collar as he pulled a hatch open in the floor. An old maintenance shaft he'd carved years ago for smuggling ethanol past patrols. "Down," he whispered. "Stay low." The girl's eyes shone with fear, but she didn't argue. She slid into the shaft, vanishing into the dark. Jace dropped after her, sealing the hatch above. The moment it clicked shut, the habitat's front door blew open. Boots thundered in. Jace's jaw clenched as he led the girl deeper into the shaft, the metal warm beneath his palms. They crawled through the dark, past pipes that dripped condensation, past humming power lines. The girl's small breaths echoed in rhythm with his own. At last, the shaft opened into one of his private tunnels, an abandoned ore vein he had claimed for himself. He crouched low, pressing his ear to the wall. Voices above. The mercenaries were tearing through his pod, smashing, searching. "Where is she?" one snarled. Heat signatures were clear, another said. "She's here." The girl whimpered. Jace pressed a hand gently over her mouth, his eyes hard. She trembled, then nodded, trusting him. When the footsteps faded, he lowered his hand. "We can't stay here," he whispered. "They'll tear the whole colony apart." Her violet eyes locked on his. "Why, me?" Jace exhaled slowly. "That's what I'd like to know." By the next cycle, the colony was a cage. Drones prowled the airlocks, scanning every miner who came and went. Syndicate patrols stalked the tunnels, rifles gleaming under the dim lights. Whispers spread fast. Something was different. The syndicate never cared about the miners, unless there was something worth more than ore hidden beneath their feet. and Jace knew exactly what that was. The girl stayed hidden in his pack, curled beneath a foil blanket that masked her heat. When he returned from drills, he found her sketching shapes in the dust with her finger, strange runes glowing faintly. "Where'd you learn that?" he asked once. Her head tilted. "Remember, my people's signs." He frowned. "Your people? Where are they?" Her eyes dimmed. "Gone." Something twisted in his chest. He wanted to press, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She had already lost too much. So had he. The break came 3 days later. Jace was guiding her through an abandoned shaft when the hum of a drone grew louder. Too loud. He pulled her into an alcove, pressing her against the stone. The drone drifted past, its scanner sweeping red light across the walls. For a moment, he thought they were safe. Then her small hand slipped, scraping stone. The noise echoed. The drone whirled, its sensors flaring. "Run!" Jace barked. They sprinted through the tunnel, boots hammering stone. The drone screeched, firing plasma bolts that scorched the walls. The girl stumbled, crying out. Jace swung his cutter up, firing a jet of flame into the drone's sensors. It spun, blinded. He leapt, driving the cutter into its core. Sparks erupted. The machine collapsed in smoking ruin. The girl stared, her violet eyes wide. "You kill," she whispered. Jace yanked the cutter free, panting. His hands shook, not from fear, but from memory. He hadn't taken a life since Callisto. "I protect," he said hoarsely. Her small fingers slipped into his calloused hand. Protector. That night they rested in a hollow near the surface. Through a crack, stars glimmered, cold, sharp, endless. The girl curled against him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Name?" "Jace," he said. She repeated it slowly, as though learning to shape the sound. Then she pointed at herself. "Elira." The word lingered in the air, strange and beautiful. Jace stared into the stars. Elira, the last of her kind, hunted for reasons he didn't yet know. And somehow she had fallen into his hands. At dawn, the syndicate struck. Alarms wailed through the colony. Jace jerked awake as explosions rocked the tunnels. Miners scattered, shouting. Through the chaos, armored mercenaries marched, their rifles spitting fire. "This way!" Jace hissed, dragging Elira down a side shaft. They ran past panicked workers, past bodies crumpled on the stone. But the syndicate had already cut off exits. A crawler blocked the main shaft, its guns tearing through anything that moved. Jace gritted his teeth. He'd lived long enough running. It ended here. He shoved Elira behind a pile of crates. "Stay hidden. Don't move until I say." Her eyes widened. "No, protector!" But he was already moving. The first merc rounded the corner. Jace slammed the cutter into his chest, sparks exploding as armor split. He ripped the rifle free, spinning and firing into the next soldier. Plasma bolts scorched the air, screams echoing in the tunnel. Years of rusted instincts burned away. He moved like he had on Callisto. Brutal, efficient, merciless. More came. He fired until the rifle clicked empty, then swung it like a club, cracking helmets. Blood slicked the stone. Elira watched with wide, terrified eyes. When the last merc fell, Jace staggered, blood dripping from his knuckles. He looked at her, chest heaving. "You still think I'm your protector?" he rasped. She ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist, clinging tight. Yes. His throat closed. For the first time in years, someone held him like he mattered. And for the first time, he didn't push them away. They fled deeper into the asteroid, using forgotten tunnels only Jace knew. He led her through shafts no syndicate map carried, past pits of molten ore and chambers of collapsed stone. At last they reached a cavern untouched by drills. Strange crystals jutted from the walls, glowing faintly. Elira gasped, running to them. Her hand brushed one, and the crystal pulsed. Runes flared across the cavern walls. Images unfolded, Maps of the asteroid belt, vast structures hidden in the rock, stars aligned in strange constellations. Jace stared, stunned. What is this? Elira's eyes shone. The forge! My people hid it. Only my blood opens it. He turned slowly to her. And that's why they're hunting you. She nodded, her small face solemn. If they get it, all worlds burn. Jace's fist clenched. He thought of Callisto, of his daughter, of everything the Syndicate had taken. He looked at Elira, the child who trusted him, who called him protector. They're not getting it, he said. And for the first time in years, Jace Valen meant every word. The cavern glowed with alien fire. Runes crawled across the crystal walls, humming in resonance with Elira's presence. Every step she took sent pulses through the stone, like the asteroid itself was alive and answering her. Jace followed close, rifle ready, eyes scanning the shadows. His instincts screamed this was no safe haven. But Elira, she was transfixed. Her small hand brushed glowing etchings, and they rippled like water. What is this place? Jace muttered, voice echoing. She glanced back at him, her violet eyes reflecting the glow. The forge. My people built it, long before your kind walked stars, a place to shape what should never be shaped. Shape what? Her gaze dropped. Weapons. Jace's gut tightened. So that was it. She wasn't just the last of her kind. She was the last lock on a vault full of nightmares. And the Syndicate wanted the key. For days they wandered deeper into the hidden network of tunnels branching from the forge. Jace rigged traps along the passages, pressure mines cobbled from old drill charges, tripwires strung with plasma cells. He knew the Syndicate wouldn't give up. Elira helped where she could, her hands deft, her mind quick. She seemed to understand machines almost instinctively, her fingers dancing over controls he barely grasped. Once she adjusted his battered rifle, tweaking its coil so it hummed smoother than it had in years. Where'd you learn that? He asked, her lips curved faintly. Remembered, she didn't say more. She rarely did, but the silence between them was changing. It wasn't empty anymore. At night they shared scraps of food by dim lantern light. She wrinkled her nose at the nutrient paste but ate anyway. Sometimes she hummed soft, alien tunes, her voice echoing in the stone. Jace found himself listening, letting the music chip away at walls he thought unbreakable. One night as he wrapped her in his threadbare blanket, she peered up at him. Why alone? She asked softly. Jace froze. He hadn't spoken of his past to anyone in years, but her eyes, fragile, trusting, unlocked something he hadn't meant to share. I had a family, he said hoarsely. Daughter. Syndicate took them from me. Everything. Callisto burned and I failed. Her small hand found his. Not fail, still protect her. The words struck deeper than any blade. He turned away, hiding the tremor in his breath. Their fragile peace shattered on the seventh day. The first sign was the silence. The forge's hum dimmed, the crystals dulling. Then came the boots, dozens of them. Voices echoed through the tunnels, harsh, mechanical. Syndicate scouts sweeping closer. Drones buzzed ahead, their red sensors slicing the dark. Jace shoved Elira behind him, pressing her into a crevice. Stay low. Don't move. She nodded, eyes wide, clutching the blanket around herself. Jace crouched at the bend of the tunnel, rifle steady. His heart pounded with a rhythm he knew too well, the beat before blood. The first drone rounded the corner. He fired. Plasma cut it down in a burst of sparks. The shot echoed, drawing shouts. Scouts poured in, rifles blazing. Jace dropped one, then another, his body moving on instinct older than exile. Bullets cracked stone, sparks flying. He ducked behind a pillar, returning fire until his coil overheated. Elira whimpered behind him, his jaw clenched. No more running. He surged forward, swinging the rifle like a club, smashing a scout's helm. He ripped the sidearm from another, firing point blank. Blood sprayed across the crystal walls, glowing red in the alien light. but there were too many. A blow caught him in the ribs, sending him sprawling. A boot slammed down on his chest, pinning him. A blade gleamed above. Jace gritted his teeth, trying to rise. Too slow, too broken. The scout sneered. The exile bleeds like the rest. And then the glow returned. The crystals blazed with sudden fire. The scout froze, eyes widening. Elira stood from the shadows, her small hands outstretched, her eyes blazing violet. The forge answered her. Energy surged from the walls, lashing like lightning. The scout screamed as his armor fried, collapsing into ash. Others staggered, weapons sparking useless in their hands. Jace stared, breath ragged. Elira! She trembled, collapsing to her knees as the light faded. Smoke drifted through the cavern. The scouts burned, broken. Jace crawled to her, gathering her in his arms. Her skin was cold, her breath shallow. Don't you do this, he growled. Don't you give up on me. Her eyes fluttered open. Protect her. He held her close, jaw clenched against the storm of fear in his chest. I've got you, always. When the silence finally settled, he searched the wreckage. Among the charred bodies, one scout's comm still blinked. Jace picked it up, his gut twisting as he listened. Vault located, coordinates confirmed, preparing for extraction. The warlord will come. The warlord. Not just scouts, not just mercenaries. The syndicate's hammer, their executioner. And he knew where they were. Jace's blood ran cold. He looked at Elira, fragile in his arms, and swore under his breath. They'll have to tear the stars apart before they take you. The forge pulsed again, faint but steady. Runes crawled across the walls, revealing images he hadn't seen before. Vast ships shattered in orbit, planets burning, weapons shaped in light and flame. Jace understood then. The forge wasn't just a vault. It was a crucible, a place where empires died. And Elira was the last one who could control it. That night, as she slept against his shoulder, he stared into the glow of the crystals. His body ached, his scars burned, but his resolve was sharper than it had been in years. He had failed once. He would not fail again. When the warlord came, Jace Valen would be ready. And God help them all. The sky above the asteroid turned to fire. Jace stood on a ridge near the surface, staring at the fleet that had descended. Dark syndicate warships blotted out the stars, their engines rumbling through the void. Dropships broke away, streaking toward the colony like arrows of flame. He spat dust from his mouth. Well, kid, looks like the party's here. Beside him, Elira's small fingers gripped his sleeve. Her violet eyes were wide, reflecting the glow of descending ships. The warlord, she whispered. He comes. Jace's jaw tightened. He remembered the comm recording, the reverence in the scout's voice when they spoke his name. The warlord wasn't just another syndicate thug. He was legend, a butcher who had ended rebellions, crushed colonies, burned worlds. And now he wanted her. The first wave hit the colony like a hammer. Dropships slammed into the surface, hatches bursting open. Mercenaries poured out, rifles blazing. Miners screamed, scattering like dust. Syndicate drones buzzed through the air, their scanners painting the rocks red. But Jace was waiting. The first squad marched into Shaft 7, scanning for heat signatures. A faint ping echoed. Then the floor gave way. Explosives planted deep in the rock detonated, collapsing the tunnel. Screams echoed as stone buried men alive. In Shaft 3, drones hovered, searching. They didn't see the pulse charges wired into the walls until Jace triggered them. Blue fire engulfed the machines, scattering their wreckage across the shaft. By the time the smoke cleared, 2 squads were gone, and they never saw his face. The miners whispered his name like a curse reborn. The exile fights back, but it couldn't last forever. By the 3rd day, the syndicate had tightened its grip. Patrols swarmed every passage. Crawlers rolled through the tunnels, their cannons blasting stone. The warlord's voice echoed through comms, a low growl broadcast across the colony. Bring me the girl. The exile dies screaming. Elira flinched when she heard it. Her small body trembled as she huddled in the forge's chamber, hugging her knees. Jace knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Hey, look at me. Her violet eyes lifted, shimmering with fear. They're not getting you, he said firmly. Not while I breathe. She studied him for a long moment, then whispered, Why? You could run. Leave me. He almost laughed, bitter and raw. Run where? I've been running my whole damn life, kid. Running from the syndicate, from my past, from myself. He touched her cheek gently, his calloused hand trembling. I'm done running. Her lips quivered. Protect her. He shook his head slowly. No, more than that. Her eyes widened as the truth settled between them, and then she whispered, so soft he barely heard. Father. The word broke him, shattered the armor he had built around his heart. His throat tightened, but he pulled her into his arms, holding her against his chest. Yeah, he whispered hoarsely. Father. The warlord came on the 5th day. Jace saw him from the ridge, a giant of a man clad in obsidian armor, his cape trailing like smoke. His helm glowed red, carved with syndicate runes. Behind him marched legions, their rifles ready, their boots shaking the stone. When he raised his gauntlet, silence fell across the battlefield. His voice rumbled like thunder. Exile, you think you can defy me with drills and dirt? I will burn this rock to cinders. Hand over the child, and I may spare your death. Jace stood in the open, rifle slung over his shoulder, knife strapped to his chest. His body was scarred, battered, older than his years, but his eyes burned. You want her, he shouted back, voice carrying across the canyon. Come take her. The warlord's laugh rolled like an avalanche. So be it. The battle became hell. Mercenaries surged through the tunnels. Jace fought them with everything he had, plasma blasts, mining traps, collapses timed to precision. He dragged Elira with him through hidden paths, always one step ahead, always fighting with nothing but grit and fury. His hands bled, his ribs screamed, but he refused to stop. For every man the warlord sent, 3 never came back. Elira fought too, not with weapons but with the forge's light. In moments of desperation, her hands glowed, runes burning on the walls. Energy surged, striking drones from the air, frying syndicate weapons to slag. Each time she collapsed in exhaustion, and Jace carried her until she woke again. Together they became something unstoppable. But the warlord was not a man to be denied. On the 7th night, his forces cornered them at the edge of the forge's heart. The chamber pulsed with alien fire, runes blazing like stars. The spires rose tall, humming with energy that vibrated in Jace's bones. Elira staggered, clutching his hand. It wakes, she whispered. The forge. It knows. Jace tightened his grip on his rifle, staring at the dark shapes advancing into the chamber. Drones filled the air. Soldiers lined the walls, and at the center, the warlord himself stepped forward, his plasma blade igniting in a hiss of blue fire. You cannot win, the warlord growled. I have crushed empires greater than you. You are dust, Exile. He is mine. Jace raised his blade, standing before Elira. His voice was steady, cold. Dust cuts just fine if you breathe it long enough. The warlord raised his hand. The army surged forward. And the last stand began. The forge's heart blazed with light. Runes burned across the walls, the chamber trembling as though the asteroid itself was alive. Elira stood at the center, her violet eyes glowing, her small hands trembling as she fought to awaken what lay buried. Jace planted himself in front of her, rifle raised, knife ready. His body screamed with exhaustion, his ribs cracked, blood streaking down his temple. He barely felt it anymore. Pain was distant. Only one truth remained. No one would touch her. The warlord's army poured into the chamber, their rifles spitting plasma fire. Jace fired back, the recoil slamming into his shoulder. Drones swarmed overhead, beams scorching stone. He triggered the charges he'd hidden earlier. Explosions tore through the tunnels, collapsing walls, crushing soldiers beneath falling rock. But more came, always more. Through it all, the warlord strode forward. His plasma blade carved arcs of blue fire, cutting through stone and steel alike. His voice rolled like thunder. "Stand down, Exile. You cannot protect her. She is the key to the forge. She is mine." Jace bared his teeth, raising his knife. "Over my dead body." The warlord's helm tilted. "That can be arranged." The clash was like steel against a storm. Jace lunged, his knife slashing across the warlord's armor. Sparks flew, but the blade barely cut. The plasma sword came down in a blazing arc. Jace rolled aside, the heat searing his arm. He fired his rifle point blank. The warlord's gauntlet flared, deflecting the blast. With a roar, the giant backhanded Jace, sending him crashing into a crystal pillar. Ribs cracked, blood filled his mouth. Still, he rose. Oh, the warlord advanced, blade humming. "Why do you fight, Exile? You have no cause, no people, no name worth carving." Jace spat blood. "You're wrong." His eyes flicked to Illyra, her small figure trembling, her voice chanting as the runes around her pulsed brighter. "I've got a daughter," he growled. They clashed again. The warlord's blade sliced through Jace's rifle, melting it in half. Jace threw it aside, charging with nothing but his knife and rage. He ducked under a swing, driving the blade into a joint in the armor. The warlord roared, sparks flying. But the giant's strength was overwhelming. His fist slammed into Jace's chest, sending him sprawling. His vision blurred, his breath ragged. The warlord raised his blade high. "Die, Exile!" Jace braced for the end, and then the forge awoke. Light exploded through the chamber. Crystals blazed with alien fire, runes cascading in endless streams. Illyra floated above the floor, her hair a crown of starlight, her eyes glowing with power beyond comprehension. The warlord staggered, shielding his face. What is this?" Her voice was not small anymore. It rang with the echo of her people, countless voices woven into one. "This forge is not yours. It was never yours. You come to take, to burn, to enslave. No more." Energy surged from her hands, striking the soldiers. Armor fried, weapons shattered, screams filled the chamber. Drones fell from the air, smoking wreckage. The warlord roared, slashing his blade against the storm. "Child, you cannot control it. You will burn with me." Jace staggered to his feet, forcing his broken body forward. "Illyra," he shouted over the roar, "you don't fight alone." With the last of his strength, Jace hurled himself at the warlord. The plasma blade slashed across his side, burning deep, but he didn't stop. He drove his knife into the warlord's chest, twisting with everything he had. The giant howled, swinging wildly. Jace clung on, teeth gritted, refusing to let go. "Now, Illyra!" he roared. The forge answered. A torrent of energy burst from her, channeling into the knife, into Jace's hands. The blade blazed like a sun, driving through the warlord's armor. The giant convulsed, his roar turning to a scream as the light consumed him. In a flash of fire and dust, the warlord was gone. Silence fell. Jace collapsed to his knees, the knife clattering from his grip. His vision blurred, the chamber spinning. He felt warm blood pouring down his side, knew the wound was mortal. But he didn't care. Illyra was safe. Small hands caught his face. Illyra knelt before him, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "No, no, protector, stay." His chest heaved. He wanted to tell her not to cry, that she was safe now, that he was proud. But his voice cracked. "I can't, kid. I'm too broken." Her lips trembled. She pressed her glowing hands to his wound. "No, not broken. Father, stay." The light spread from her palms, seeping into his skin. Heat seared through him, burning deeper than fire. His body convulsed, but the bleeding slowed. The pain dulled. His vision cleared. He gasped, clutching her hands. "Alara!" She smiled weakly. "Told you. Protect her." Above them, the forge unleashed its final breath. Energy surged through the asteroid, out into space. The Syndicate fleet in orbit erupted as the pulse struck. Ships shattered, engines fried, weapons torn apart. One by one, warships turned to wreckage, burning across the stars. The warlord's army, cut off and leaderless, fled into the tunnels, scattering like rats, and then there was only silence. The forge dimmed, its purpose fulfilled. The runes faded, leaving only stone. Jace sat there in the quiet, Alara curled against him, both breathing, both alive. In the days that followed, the colony stirred back to life. The miners crept from hiding, whispering of the exile who had defied the Syndicate, who had destroyed the warlord with nothing but stone and fire. Jace ignored them. He had no interest in legends. He was busy teaching Alara how to hold a spanner, how to fix a power coil, how to cook paste so it didn't taste like ash. She laughed when he burned it. For the first time in years, laughter filled his pod. One night she curled beside him, her head against his chest. "We safe now?" Jace stared into the stars through the viewport. He knew the Syndicate wasn't gone. Others would come, the galaxy was still cruel. But he also knew something else. They weren't alone anymore. He kissed the top of her silver hair, his arms around her small frame. "Yeah, kid," he whispered. "We're safe, and if anyone tries again, they'll have to go through me." Alara smiled, drifting into sleep. Jace closed his eyes, the weight of exile gone at last. Not a broken miner, not a failed father, but a protector reborn.